Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Tuesday, February 5th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to tonight's slate, go over some of the more fallout from the Super Bowl from a gambling perspective and props that hit. I'll talk about what every NBA team has to do in order to get an A grade at the NBA trade deadline, and I'll do my best bet of the day. College basketball, not a huge slate last night. Number 16, Louisville upsets number 11, Virginia Tech, 72-64. A fantastic win for Louisville. They're 17-6. Virginia Tech is 18-4. Siena defeats Fairfield, 61-50. Siena goes to 11-12. Fairfield, 7-17. Colgate defeats Lehigh 84-62. Colgate 14-10. Lehigh 15-7. Marist defeats Canisius 78-71 in overtime. Marist 9-14. Canisius 9-13. Florida A&M defeats NC Central 73-57. A&M is 10-14. Central 10-13. Delaware State upsets South Carolina State 70-68. Delaware State 4-18. And South Carolina State 4-20. Bethune-Cookman defeats North Carolina A&T 63-59. Bethune-Cookman improves to 10-13. A&T drops to 11-11. Savannah State defeats Maryland Eastern 68-63. Savannah State 7-15. UMass is 4-21. Penn State defeats Northwestern 59-52. That was the first Big Ten win of the year for Penn State. They're 8-14. Northwestern's 12-10. Texas Southern defeats Alabama A&M 84-74, I should say. Texas Southern's 11-11. Bama A&M is 4-19. Jackson State defeats Arkansas Pine Bluff 65-52. Jackson State is 9-13. Pine Bluff is 7-15. Prairie View defeats Alabama State 69-67. Prairie View is 11-11. Alabama State is 8-12. Number 17, Iowa State defeats Oklahoma 75-74. This should have been 75-71, but the officials foolishly counted a three-pointer at the buzzer to make it a one-score game. That affected a lot of gamblers in the world that had Iowa State minus 2.5. And folks that had Oklahoma State plus 2.5 got lucky, as Iowa State goes to 18-5. Oklahoma drops to 15-8. Number 18, Texas Tech crushed West Virginia 81-50. Texas Tech goes to 18-5. West Virginia drops to 10-13. Eastern Washington defeats Northern Arizona 82-64. Eastern Washington 8-13. Northern Arizona 7-14. Montana State defeats Northern Colorado 69-66. Montana State 9-12. Northern Colorado 14-8. Grambling defeats Mississippi Valley State 79-57. Grambling 11-11. Mississippi Valley State 3-20. Southern Utah defeats Idaho 75-64. Southern Utah 10-10. Idaho is 4-17. Tonight's games at 7 o'clock on ESPN. You have Boston College at number 2 Duke. Duke's laying 23.5. They should win and cover that easily. And by the way, it's the Crossing Announcers special on ESPN. So you'll be seeing some NBA analysts calling college games and vice versa. I believe Hubie Brown's going to be on the call of Boston College Duke. And I think it's with Dan Schulman and Dick Vitale. And then you have South Carolina at number 5, Kentucky. Kentucky's laying 16. I think they're going to win and cover. The Wildcats have been on a roll. Number 9, Michigan State at Illinois on ESPN2. Trap game for the Spartans. They're a 10-point favorite. I think they avoid the trap and win the game easily and obviously cover. You have Stetson at Liberty, Akron at Toledo, Drake at Loyola Chicago on the CBS Sports Network. Loyola's laying 7. Drake, I think, has been the biggest surprise in the Missouri Valley this year, and I think they will cover. But the Ramblers get the win on their home floor. Bowling Green in Western Michigan, St. Joe's at LaSalle, Miami of Ohio at Kent State, Ryder at Manhattan. On ESPNU, you have Pitt at Wake Forest. Pitt's laying 3 on the road. Trap games, they'll give me Wake Forest to pull off the slim home upset. 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, you have number 7 Michigan at Rutgers. Trap game at the Rack. Rutgers has picked off a lot of decent teams this year. They haven't knocked off the Big Two yet, but they've knocked off some of the Tier 2 teams in the Big Ten, such as like Ohio State. I think they beat Iowa. I think they knocked off Wisconsin. They knocked off a couple teams in conference play, but you can't remember who in particular. Michigan's coming off a loss of their own at Iowa, so I expect them to bounce back here in a big way and win by double digits. So the rack won't be a factor tonight as Michigan wins and covers. You have NC State at number 8, North Carolina. Carolina's laying 10.5. I think Carolina wins, but I think the Wolfpack cover and bounce back and at least show a little bit of life offensively after their debacle of a game against Virginia Tech on Saturday. But like I said, Carolina wins, but State covers. You have St. John's at number 10, Marquette, 8 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Marquette's laying 6.5. This is an absolute revenge spot for Marquette. I think they're going to win, and they're going to cover against St. John's. I won't be shocked if this is a 15-point-plus win for Marquette. But at the same time, I won't be floored if St. John's went in to Marquette and won. But I lean towards Marquette blowout rather than St. John's upset. On the ACC Network, you have number 22, Florida State at Syracuse. Syracuse is laying 2.5. I think they win and cover. That's not an upset because Syracuse is unranked, but they're giving points. Valparaiso at Illinois State. Ball State at Northern Illinois. 9 o'clock on ESPN2. You have Missouri at number 1, Tennessee. Tennessee's laying 18. They're going to win and cover easily. Number 13, Kansas at Kansas State. 9 o'clock on ESPN. Kansas State's laying 3. They're going to win and they're going to cover. Kansas is not the same team without Duzika Azubuike. CBS Sports Network, you have Dayton at St. Louis. St. Louis is actually getting 2.5 in their home building. I don't get why Dayton's favored. The wrong team's favored here. St. Louis is going to win and cover as the dog. 9 o'clock on ESPNU, Florida and Auburn. Auburn's laying 8. Auburn, I don't love this Auburn team, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a good performance by them. So give me for them the win and cover. I think they win by double digits. And on the SEC Network, you have Arkansas hosting Vanderbilt. Arkansas is favored by 7. I think that's too big of a number for Arkansas to be laying. I think they'll win, but Vanderbilt covers. 10:30 of Utah State at Fresno State. Utah State's laying 2 on the road. I think the wrong team's favored here. I like Fresno State to pull off the home upset. 11 o'clock on ESPN2. You have San Diego State at New Mexico. San Diego State's laying 2.5. New Mexico already upset Nevada. Do I think they do it again? No. So give me San Diego State to win and the cover. NBA. 6-game slate last night. The Pistons defeat the Nuggets by a score of 129-103. A very nice win for Detroit. They're 23-29. Detroit's 37-16. Denver's 37-16. Oof. Andre Drummond had a good game. He had 27 points with 12 boards. Blake Griffin had 17 and 7. Reggie Jackson had 14. Reggie Bullock had 11. Off the bench, Stanley Johnson, 21 points and 7 boards, improving his trade value a little bit. Langston Galloway had 18. Luke Kennard had 14. Meanwhile, for Denver, off the bench, Trey Lyles had 20. Paul Millsap did not play due to a sore right ankle. Malik Beasley had 16. Will Barton had 10. Monte Morris had 18. Nikola Jokic had 16. And Mason Plumlee had 15. The Hawks upset the Wizards 137-129 as Atlanta's ruining their tank. I predicted this team to go 19-63 before the year. I was just taking a listen to my preseason NBA predictions podcast. Oof, I'm going to be way off on that. Atlanta's already at 18 wins. They're 18-35. And Washington drops to 22-31. Taurean Prince, 21 points. John Collins, double-double machine, 15 points and 11 boards. Dwayne Dedmon had 12. Trae Young had 10 and 10, meaning 10 points, 10 assists. Kevin Huerter had 19. Amari Spellman off the bench had 16. Vince Carter off the bench had 16. And Jeremy Lin and Kent Bazemore each had 11 off the bench. Trevor Ariza had 25. Otto Porter Jr. had 13. Bradley Beal had 27 with 6 boards and 6 assists. Thomas Satoransky, 11 points, 9 assists, 7 boards. Jeff Green had 26 off the bench with 5 assists and 5 boards. And Jordan McRae off the bench had 20. The Bucks defeat the Nets 113-94, an impressive win for Milwaukee as they go to 39-13. Brooklyn drops to 28-27. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 30 points, 15 boards, and 9 assists. Chris Middleton had 12. Eric Bledsoe had 15. Malcolm Brogdon had 16. And meanwhile for Brooklyn, D'Angelo Russell had 18. Shabazz Napier had 15. And off the bench, Theo Pinson had 10. The Pacers defeat the Pelicans 109-107. That's their second win post the Victor Oladipo injury. They're 34-19. New Orleans is 23-31. Darren Collison, 22 points and 6 assists. Miles Turner at 15. Thaddeus Young and Bojan Bogdanovic each had 14. And off the bench, Domantas Sabonis had 16. Jahlil Okafor continues to play great in Anthony Davis' absence. 25 points and 13 boards. Darius Miller had 16. Drew Holiday had 19 with 9 assists and 11 boards. Off the bench, Chiak Diallo had 12 with 14 boards, and Ian Clark had 18. The Rockets defeat the Suns 118-110. Houston goes to 31-22. Phoenix drops to 11-44. James Harden, 44 points, 8 boards, 6 assists. Chris Paul had 18. James Ennis had 13. Kenneth Faried had 17 and 14 boards. Josh Jackson, I've been doing this every podcast lately, 25 points. DeAndre Ayton, 15 points and 11 boards. Devin Booker had 19 with 7 boards and 5 assists. Kelly Oubre Jr. had 23, and Rashawn Holmes had 11 off the bench. The Kings defeat the Spurs 127-112. That's 7 straight home wins for the Sacramento Kings. They're 28-25. San Antonio drops to 32-23. Marvin Bagley off the bench, 24 points and 12 boards. Harry Giles off the bench had 11. Yogi Ferrell off the bench had 19. De'Aaron Fox had 26 and 6. Amon Shumpert had 13, 6 and 6. Buddy Hield had 18, 8 boards, 5 assists. Meanwhile for San Antonio, LaMarcus Aldridge had 22 with 9 boards. DeMar DeRozan had 24. Bryn Forbes had 12 with 7 boards. Rudy Gay and Davis Bertans each had 11. And off the bench, Patty Mills had 12. Tonight's slate, you have 8 deep. At 7 o'clock, you have the Clippers at the Hornets, the Celtics at the Cavaliers, the Lakers at the Pacers, 7:30, the Pistons at the Knicks, 8 o'clock on TNT, the Raptors at the 76ers, Philly's favored by 3. This is the players-only day for TNT. The Sixers are favored by 3. The Raptors have been fantastic as road underdogs this year, except for the game in San Antonio. They were actually a dog in that game. They got handed to them by the Spurs, in which they were a bit of a distraction. So I'm going to take the Sixers to win here because I think Joel Embiid is going to be the best player on the court. I have a feeling that he's going to go off for like a 35, 15, and 7 type of game. And Ben Simmons will facilitate. Jimmy Butler will have a good game. So give me the Sixers at home in a close one. I think they win by 5. So I think Philly by 3 is the right line for this game too, by the way. And this would get the Sixers within 2 in the loss column if they were able to pull off this game of the Raptors. The Timberwolves at the Grizzlies, the Magic at the Thunder, and at 10:30 on TNT, the doubleheader. Nightcap for the players only is the Heat at the Trailblazers. Portland is giving 7.5. That is absolutely a steal. Portland's going to blow out Miami, just like they blew out Utah the other day. Utah's a better team than Miami. Portland's been playing great. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum on national TV will light it up, and give me Portland to win big by double digits. I think the first game's going to be good, but the second game's going to be a complete dud. So give me the Blazers by 17. Maybe like a 120-103 type of game. The NHL, only 3 games last night. Oh, I'm sorry, 4. The Kings defeat the Rangers 4-3 in overtime. Rangers are up 3-2. Kings pulled Jonathan Quick. Adrian Kempe, who was the number 1 star of the game with 2 goals and assists, had the game-tying goal. And then Tyler Toffoli, who was the number 2 star of the game with the goal and assist, scored 25 seconds into the overtime. Number 3 star of the game with the goal and assist was Mika Zibanejad of the Rangers, as the Kings go to 21-27-4. Rangers drop to 22-22-8. The Maple Leafs defeat the Ducks 6-1. The Maple Leafs improved to 32-17-3. Anaheim drops to 21-23-9. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, Jake Muzzin. Number 2 star of the game with 2 goals and 2 assists, Andreas Johnson. And the number 3 star of the game with 24 saves on 25 shots, Frederik Andersen. Big Maple Leafs news that I'm going to get to once I'm done with the hockey scores and look-ahead segment. The Flyers defeat the Canucks 2-1, as the Flyers improved to 24-23-6 to get above 500. Vancouver drops to 24-23-6. Oh, both teams have the same record now. Number 1 star of the game, 41 saves on 42 shots, Carter Hart. He's been the facilitator to this Philadelphia win streak, which is now at 8 straight games. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Jake Voracek. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Sean Couturier. And the Stars defeat the Coyotes 5-4. A fantastic win for Dallas, a much-needed one, too. They're 28-21-4. Arizona drops to 23-24-5. Number 1 star of the game with 2 assists, Jamie Benn. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Tyler Seguin. Number 3 star of the game with a goal, Alex Galchenyuk. Tonight's slate's a big one. At 7 o'clock, the Islanders at the Bruins, the Wild at the Sabres, the Blues at the Panthers, the Kings at the Devils, the Hurricanes at the Penguins, the Canucks at the Capitals. 7:30, the Ducks at the Canadiens, the Golden Knights at the Lightning. 8 o'clock, the Coyotes at the Predators, the Sharks at the Jets. 9 o'clock, the Blue Jackets at the Avalanche, and the Blackhawks at the Oilers. That is a monster slate, and none of those games are on NBCSN. Big hockey news that just broke. Austin Matthews got a contract extension from the Toronto Maple Leafs, 5 years, with an average annual value of $11.634 million. So, doing the math, 5 times 11.36. I'm sorry, 11.63 is 58.15. I think that is a bargain, but it's a 5-year extension rather than a 10-year extension. But a lot of money. I think Matthew cares more about the money than the years. This was a thing that Toronto had to do. And now they have to take care of Mitch Marner. We'll see if he's traded or if somebody throws an offer sheet at him this summer. But let's face it, they had to take care of Matthews before Marner because Matthews is obviously the better player than Marner. So I wanted to get that breaking news out of the way before I get to the Super Bowl leftovers. I want to talk about the Super Bowl a little bit and some prop things that won and whatnot. To have more passing yards between Tom Brady and Jared Goff, it was obviously Brady. The rushing leader was Sonny Michel. Receiving was Edelman. And like some of those head-to-head ones, obviously, Edelman won a lot of them regarding receiving. Rex Burkhead had 15 receiving yards, and Todd Gurley had a -1. So that was one of the head-to-head ones, and Burkhead was, I believe, a plus on that one, if I'm not mistaken. The throw more interceptions, Goff or Brady, that ended up in as a wash. Todd Gurley had the most rushing yards for the Rams. Brandon Cook had the most receiving yards for the Rams. C.J. Anderson had a fumble, but it wasn't lost. Corey Littleton had the first interception of the game. That ended up winning. I don't think many people had that. And Stephon Gilmore had an interception late in the game. The national anthem was a popular prop bet. That hit over because Gladys Knight said brave and held it out long twice, which led to the over. A lot of people said that was the lock of the year in terms of Super Bowl prop bets, and that proved to be right. There was one out there, the first song Maroon 5 would sing at halftime. The popular choice was This Love, and some people had Moves Like Jagger. That ended up being Harder to Breathe, which was a forgotten hit of theirs that was pretty popular around 2007, 2008, I believe, and that was a hit. And then the other one was that the color of the Gatorade poured on Bill Belichick, in Belichick's case, he was the winning coach, was blue. Meanwhile, I thought it would be red. And then another prop was a missed field goal. I happened to catch it at plus 450. That won me some bucks. A missed extra point did not happen like I thought there was a chance of it happening, or else that would have cashed in a lot of money. That actually went from a missed extra point in the game, went from plus 450 all the way down to plus 275 at some sports books. That was a very popular prop bet that went down, 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 but that ended up not hitting. And obviously Julian Edelman winning the Super Bowl MVP was 28-1. So somebody got a hefty payday there. And there was one for a while that was in play. The no touchdowns to be scored was 500-1. Somebody could have been very lucky if the Patriots didn't punch it into the end zone and they ended up getting 6 instead of 3. And then they got another 3 instead of 6. And then Steven Gostkowski could have been the game MVP if that was the case. If they kicked all those field goals. That would have been a nice long shot for somebody to win as well. And then obviously the futures for both teams I want to talk about. The Patriots, I think, will still be very good in the AFC. Although I think the contender pool is a little deeper now going into next year than it was headed into this year. Because we know Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. And we know that the Colts are back to being a serious contender with a couple more additions. Obviously, Houston will be right there. And you have the Chargers. And then there's some other intriguing possibilities. Like, say, if Pittsburgh keeps Antonio Brown and keep their core intact with some improvements, they could still be a contender. And obviously the Ravens, if Lamar Jackson improves on year one. And then there's obviously the Cleveland Browns, who I think will be the most popular new division winner pick of 2019, and for all the right reasons, because of Baker Mayfield and a new head coach and Freddie Kitchens, and they have some cap space, and there's a lot of other reasons why you can point to the Browns as a new playoff team. And meanwhile, for the Rams, they still have the young quarterback in Jared Goff, and they still have Todd Gurley around. They have Aaron Donald around. Those guys were paid. Sean McVay's still there. That is the 4 guys that are the most important to the Rams. I'm talking about Goff, McVay, Gurley, and Donald. And obviously they have to get Gurley right after a subpar finish to the season and playoffs, whether that's because of injury or whatnot. But they have to get Todd Gurley right. There's a lot of guys that they have on expirings. Their trade acquisition, Dante Fowler Jr. They also have Brandon Cooks expiring. Another expiring is Ndamukong Suh. So they're going to have some cap room, even though they have a lot of it tied up into Gurley and Donald. But that's okay. Those are 2 foundational pieces that you have to keep around. And then you have the draft. You have the 31st pick to improve your team. So they should still be a contender in the NFC. But I think it'll be tougher for them to get back to the Super Bowl for the same reasons as the Patriots in terms of more contenders coming. There's obviously the Saints, who probably should have been there instead of the Rams if it weren't for a bogus no call that I keep mentioning over and over on the podcast. You have the Chicago Bears, who still has a quarterback on the rookie contract and can go out and improve their team. And they have a new good head coach in Matt Nagy. You have the Philadelphia Eagles. No matter what they do at quarterback, they should still be a good team in the NFC. You have a bounce-back potential team in the Minnesota Vikings, who were a major disappointment this past season. And if Kirk Cousins improves off of his first year as a Viking, and if he gets better protection, and the defense is healthy the whole year, then that's a contender in the NFC. There's a couple wild cards, such as the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, whether Rodgers is the same or not. And then another wild card could be the New York Giants. If, let's say, they draft Dwayne Haskins and Eli Manning doesn't start for them anymore, maybe that could be a sleeper contender in the NFC, just like the Ravens last year, how they got rid of Joe Flacco, but pretty much didn't start him anymore in favor of Lamar Jackson. I could see a similar situation playing out in New York this year if they draft somebody in the first round and that quarterback can take over for Eli Manning instead of the Ravens situation, which was Jackson taking over for Flacco. So that's a big wild card in the NFC. And then you can't count out Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They made the playoffs last year. I thought Pete Carroll should be a finalist for Coach of the Year, which he was. Matt Nagy, I think, deserved it over him because at least Seattle can point to and say, oh, well, we have Russell Wilson. But then a case against Matt Nagy was Khalil Mack edition. But I think the Bears were a bigger surprise than the Seahawks because the Bears actually won their division. And I think it would have been a major, major upset if the Rams did not win the NFC West. And speaking of the NFC West, another wild card. Two more other wild cards. Is Jimmy Garoppolo? How does he come back? Maybe the Niners are a playoff team and they have a lot of cap space. Maybe they trade for Antonio Brown or sign Le'Veon Bell. Or they go out and, so let's say Dallas doesn't franchise tag DeMarcus Lawrence. Maybe they can go out and sign him. And a possible surprise NFC team next year could be the Arizona Cardinals if Josh Rosen makes the year 2 jump, a la Patrick Mahomes. But the case that it really shouldn't be that big of a jump was that Mahomes only played 1 game last year, and so Mahomes really wasn't, quote-unquote, a jump. If Josh Rosen's the Patrick Mahomes of 2019, then that's a monster jump. The Patrick Mahomes of next year is either going to be Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or possibly Dwayne Haskins or Kyler Murray on either the Giants or Jacksonville or whomever, Washington, or whoever needs a quarterback. And another wild card could be, even in the NFC, the Atlanta Falcons. That's a team that disappointed the last couple years, and say the new offensive coordinator works out and they improve via the draft and free agency, and they have some good guys on their pass rush, so don't count that team out. And then the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton was hurt at the end of last year, which explains why they collapsed. Maybe that's a contender in the NFC. There's a lot of intriguing possibilities and a lot of teams whose windows could be opening or closing. I think New England's window's closing because of Brady aging. And I do think the Rams, let's face it, I think their window's sort of closing in a weird way because they're going to have to pay Jared Goff sooner than later. But I think the Rams have a wider window than New England because Brady is aging, although Brady is still playing at a high level. All right, now we'll move on to the NBA to-do lists for every team ahead of the trade deadline. There's one team that gets an NA, which we'll get to in a minute because they already did something monstrous. The Atlanta Hawks. Trade Jeremy Lin, Dwayne Dedmon, and Kent Bazemore to improve your chances of landing Zion Williamson. The Hawks have stupidly won some games, which has hurt their chances of getting Zion Williamson, and their little spurt of good basketball is a big win for teams like the Knicks, the Suns, the Bulls, and the Cavaliers. So if I'm Atlanta, I'd trade those 3 veterans for some picks and for some young prospects that haven't worked out on some teams. I heard a rumor the other day that there could be like a Markelle Fultz to Atlanta for Dwayne Dedmon. If that's the case, that's a steal for Atlanta because Dwayne Dedmon should not be worth Markelle Fultz. To me, Markelle Fultz should be a key piece in a deal that would land the 76ers Anthony Davis, not a veteran like Dwayne Dedmon. It should be a superstar like Davis, or I think I would have thrown him in the Jimmy Butler deal if I had to, but I think it's sort of a win for Philadelphia that they didn't have to throw in Fultz. If I would throw in Fultz for Davis, I would do that in a millisecond. I'd throw Fultz in instead of Ben Simmons, and then you have that great big four of Simmons, Davis, Butler, and Embiid if Butler were to stay there long term. And I'm surprised that the 76ers aren't on Anthony Davis's wish list because that instantly becomes the best team in the NBA if Davis goes there, regardless of who they trade, whether it's Simmons or Fultz. The Boston Celtics acquire a backup big. Their backup bigs really haven't done much this year. I'm surprised Robert Williams hasn't been a surprise impact rookie for the Boston Celtics this year. Or they can use him as a trade asset to get the backup big. And Dedmon would be perfect for Boston. The Brooklyn Nets get a nice bench piece, whether it's a big or even a point guard because of the Dinwiddie injury. Or a wing would be nice that could shoot some threes for you. Rodney Hood would have been a nice fit, but Portland went out and traded for him. Give the Blazers credit for that. Somebody else that's intriguing to Brooklyn for me could be somebody like New York's Noah Vonleh, but I don't see the Knicks trading with Philly. Jeremy Lin would be interesting. Maybe Chicago dangles one of their veterans. Charlotte Hornets, keep Kemba Walker, get something for Frank Kaminsky. Number one, I think will happen. I think they'll keep Kemba Walker past the trade deadline because they're in a playoff position right now, and if I'm Charlotte, you don't give that up, and you try to convince Kemba Walker to stay. And I think Kemba Walker has a chance of staying there. I think Kaminsky's on his way out because I think Charlotte's down on him. Like, that's another team that could be like a Dedmon. And like Kaminsky and Dedmon, that's fine. Like, I think getting Kaminsky would be a win for Atlanta. Not as big as a win as saying them getting Markelle Fultz to try to rejuvenate, but somebody like Kaminsky I think would be worth Dedmon. Because I still think Fultz has value in this league, and Kaminsky doesn't have as high as value to me as Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz was just the number one overall pick 2 years ago. Nobody thought it was going to be this bad. The Chicago Bulls, keep young core intact, trade Robin Lopez. Who do I qualify as the Bulls' young core? Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., Chris Dunn, and people that I would get rid of are Robin Lopez. Jabari Parker just hasn't worked out. I would try to buy him out or trade him somewhere. There's rumors about him going to the Lakers. I heard the Knicks were interested in him. There's some other random teams. That'd be another Hawks possibility. If I'm Atlanta, I'd try to rejuvenate him. That's what I would do if I'm Atlanta. Try to get disgruntled young players to try to rejuvenate them. That's why Fultz makes a lot of sense for Atlanta, or Jabari Parker, or another name I'm going to mention in a couple minutes regarding an East contender that hasn't panned out as a lottery pick. But if I'm Chicago, you do not trade Wendell Carter, Lauri Markkanen, or Chris Dunn. Although I've heard that they floated Dunn out there. They're not high on him. Oh, and you don't trade Chandler Hutchinson either. I think that guy's a possible keeper. But yeah, I would trade any veteran like a Robin Lopez or Jabari Parker, who I really don't consider a veteran. I still consider him a young guy. To me, if you're drafted from 2014 or later, you're still considered a young guy. 2013 and back, to me, I consider you a veteran. Like, to me, Victor Oladipo, to me, is now sort of a veteran. So is, let's be honest, Giannis Antetokounmpo, even though he's so young age-wise. But he's such a talented player, and he was so young when he was drafted. But to me, he's closer more to a veteran than a young guy. And so it should be interesting to see what Chicago does. Cleveland, do not trade Kevin Love yet, because you need to see how much value he has. And if he comes back and plays well, he could ruin your tank. So they have a tricky situation here. But if I'm Cleveland, you play Kevin Love against good teams and good competition. You sit him against bad teams to help your tank. So I wouldn't trade him yet, and I try to move him in the summertime. And I still think he has value in the league. And then if I'm Cleveland, I try to offload Matthew Dellavedova and J.R. Smith. The Dallas Mavericks, nothing. Their thing would have been try to acquire young stars to go with Luka Doncic, and they did that with Kristaps Porzingis last week. I think that trade is a major win for them as long as Porzingis stays healthy and turns back into the franchise guy that he was on the Knicks before he tore his ACL. So the Mavericks, to me, automatically get an A because they acquired Kristaps Porzingis. The Denver Nuggets, get a reliable bench piece. Could that be Miami's Wayne Ellington or maybe Atlanta's Kent Bazemore? But to me, it's preferably a wing. And we'll see what they give up. They have some future picks to give up, second rounders. The Detroit Pistons, see what you can get for Stanley Johnson, Reggie Jackson, and Langston Galloway. Galloway can help a contender off the bench. That could be a nice piece for the Nuggets. Stanley Johnson's another guy I think Atlanta should try out as like a failed lottery pick, or a team maybe like New York. Or, I mean, Brooklyn would have been in that conversation, or still could be. Even though they're fighting for playoff positioning right now in the East, they're your surprise team in the East. To me, they're this year's version of the Pacers, and Russell's this year's Oladipo. Like the team that everybody thought was a lottery team that's in the playoffs. Now we know who it is, and that's the Nets. So Stanley Johnson, somebody interesting. I could see even the Suns trying him. Sacramento, even though they're in the hunt for the 8th seed in the West. That could have been a possible Mavericks target, but the difference is that Johnson is not a star, and Porzingis is. And Reggie Jackson, if anything, that could be like a salary dump. You can attach a pick to him because he has such a onerous contract. The Golden State Warriors, get a reliable bench piece. Wesley Matthews is somebody that can help them if the Knicks buy him out or trade him. Maybe somebody like Kent Bazemore, although I think it would cost a lot to get Kent Bazemore unless Atlanta buys him out. But if I'm the Warriors, I wait till the buyout market because you don't have a lot of assets to trade. The Houston Rockets, explore buyout market, guys. That was a great acquisition with Kenneth Faried, who has started some games for them, but once the playoffs come around, will probably come off the bench and do some damage against second units. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Houston and what moves they make. But if I'm them, I go buyout route instead of trade route. Unless you're in the Anthony Davis sweepstakes, which right now they're not. The Indiana Pacers, try to get a good guard. Whether it's a point guard or a shooting guard, it could be a rental to before Victor Oladipo comes back. I made a case for them trading for Kemba Walker, but if I'm Charlotte, I'd keep him. The guy that's perfect for Indiana to me is Drew Holiday. Give up maybe a first-round pick and a couple of your young players like a TJ Leaf or even a Miles Turner. But I think that would be even a little bit of an overpay if you give a Miles Turner for Drew Holiday. But that guy would be perfect, and then you don't only make this trade for this year, but you make it for next year too. To put him with Victor Oladipo. Los Angeles Clippers, upgrade at center. The perfect guy for them would be Enes Kanter, who I think will get bought out by the Knicks eventually because he's not getting along with David Fizdale, and he's just an immature guy that wants playing time. But it's obvious that the Knicks want to develop young players rather than to play veterans. Although DeAndre Jordan came in the Porzingis deal, but let's face it, he's an expiring, and the Knicks want Kevin Durant this summer, so that's okay. There's certain rules, exception to the rules, like getting expirings, which will help you clear cap room for a superstar player. So Enes Kanter's a good possibility. It'd be fun if they reunited with DeAndre Jordan, if the Knicks bought him out or traded him. And then New York's Noah Vonleh, so 3 centers on the Knicks I just rattled off. Dedmon would be an upgrade for them because he could start or come off the bench. So that'd be interesting to see what they do. Just upgrade over Marcin Gortat, who I think is washed up. The Lakers, if not Anthony Davis, get bench reinforcements. If they don't trade for Anthony Davis, if I'm them, I get bench guys. Carmelo Anthony, there's talks about him going to the Lakers, but I don't know if that will work. Maybe he'll be motivated to play with LeBron, although I thought he'd be motivated to play with Chris Paul. But I just think that he didn't like D'Antoni and wanted to get out of Houston. And then maybe they'll be in play for like a Kent Bazemore. But if I'm them, I try to get a forward to come off the bench because they have a lot of good guards coming off the bench, like Rondo and Stevenson and Caldwell Pope and Hart. They have a good guard rotation. But if I'm them, I look at forwards. Like, if the Kings were a seller, the perfect guy for them would be Nemanja Bjelica. Harrison Barnes is too expensive. Maybe somebody like, if they could take a chance on Stanley Johnson, that'd be a nice piece. Wesley Johnson is a veteran out there. Wesley Matthews would be perfect for the Lakers if the Knicks trade him or buy him out. The Memphis Grizzlies, see what you can get for Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, and Justin Holiday. I don't get why they traded 2 seconds for Justin Holiday. Although I had to give them credit, they thought they were good at the time, but they realized they're not. So, and this is the same argument with the Wizards with Trevor Ariza, which I'm going to get to. If you thought you were good, just admit you made a mistake and put him back out there on the market and see what you can get. I think a contender will be all over Justin Holiday. The Lakers are perfect for him. Like I said, the Lakers need a forward who can hit threes off the bench. They have a lot of guards, but they need forwards. Holiday would be perfect for the Lakers, either Holiday or Wesley Matthews. And then Conley's a good Indiana candidate, and then Marc Gasol, there's rumors about the Spurs and the Blazers, but you never know. The Miami Heat. Fetch future assets for role players like Wayne Ellington and James Johnson and Tyler Johnson. No, they're not going to trade Hassan Whiteside or Goran Dragic or Justin Swinslow. I think the Heat want to make the playoffs, but at the same time they want to get younger and build around Winslow. So I could see them trading guys like Ellington and the Johnsons and maybe even Dion Waiters for stuff. But I don't know if they'll get him a lot. The Milwaukee Bucks, get a reliable backup big. Brook Lopez has been sensational this year so far with the Bucks, but they just need a backup guy. I think Dedmon's a little overqualified for that. Although if he was a backup, Boston or Philly would make a lot of sense. If he'd back up Horford or Embiid. But I don't think Dedmon makes sense for Milwaukee. If I'm Milwaukee, maybe Noah Vonleh from the Knicks or Robin Lopez from the Bulls. I would love Robin Lopez. I just like the thought of Brook and Robin together. That's what I predicted a few weeks ago. So I think Robin Lopez would be the perfect get for Milwaukee. Minnesota Timberwolves. See what Dario Saric, Robert Covington, and Derrick Rose can fetch back. I don't think they'll trade Derrick Rose. Although, if you told me that they did, I wouldn't be floored. And Saric and Covington are 2 guys they obviously got in the Jimmy Butler deal. They're the 2 main pieces in terms of players. But I would put him back out in the market and see if one of them can fetch a first-round pick. Because I think those guys would help a contender. The Pelicans. Wait until the summer to deal Anthony Davis. And see what Drew Holiday and Nikola Mirotic can fetch. I already made a case for Drew Holiday to the Indiana Pacers. I think Mirotic would fit well on some teams. But I'm not sure which teams, really, per se. I think Mirotic can be bought out and then he could be signed with somebody. And why wait until the summer if you're New Orleans? Wait to see where the ping balls drop. If the New York Knicks win the Zion Williamson sweepstakes, then that immediately becomes the best thing you can get for Anthony Davis. And then if New York is able to land Davis for the number 1 pick, and let's say Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both signed there, Davis, Durant, and Irving with whomever role players come on that team is immediately a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference and arguably the team to beat in the East, assuming that other random moves aren't made. The Knicks, speaking of them, see what Noah Vonleh and Emmanuel Mudiay can fetch back. Buyout or trade DeAndre Jordan, Enes Kanter, and Wesley Matthews. Austin Matthews is in my head because he just got an extension from the Maple Leafs. But yeah, Wesley Matthews, I think, is certainly a candidate to be traded or bought out. I think the Sixers, the Lakers, the Warriors, if the Clippers go for it, he'd be a good fit there. Enes Kanter, I already made the case for him to be on the Clippers. He would have been a nice Laker if the Lakers didn't sign Tyson Chandler. And if they didn't have the emergences of Mo Wagner or Ivica Zubac. DeAndre Jordan, I just made fun of the fact that, imagine if the Clippers brought him back, kind of a thing. But I think Jordan can help a contender, potentially off the bench or even a start. So we'll see. But my guess is that Kanter and Matthews get bought out or traded. Vonleh's gone. Knicks keep Mudiay because I don't think anybody wants him. And I think Jordan sticks around for the season. And he is their starting center. The Oklahoma City Thunder, get a bench forward. Nikola Mirotic would be the perfect guy for this team, but I think they would, if I'm Oklahoma City, wait and see if he gets bought out because I don't know what the Pelicans are asking for in a possible trade. But I think Mirotic would be excellent. And you could start him at the 4 next to Paul George, and then in the backcourt with Russell Westbrook and Terrence Ferguson, who's had a breakout year on Oklahoma City this year. And then obviously Steven Adams. So that would be a lethal crunch time 5 for Oklahoma City. That's why I think Mirotic makes a lot of sense for that team. The Orlando Magic, trade Terrence Ross. I don't think they'll get a first for him. Maybe they can get a good second for him. And see what Nikola Vucevic or Aaron Gordon could fetch back. I don't think they should trade Gordon because he's very young. Vucevic is an all-star in a contract there, and there's buzz that they're looking to trade him in case he doesn't come back. This is obviously the best year of Vucevic's career. He could be the plan B if the Lakers don't get Anthony Davis. And say if he hits the open market, maybe that's their backup plan for New York if they don't get Anthony Davis or Zion Williamson. So, just, if I'm Orlando and you don't think he's coming back, just try to see what's out there. Maybe the Lakers would give up a key piece of their young core, or one of their young pieces like Josh Hart and Mo Wagner to first for Vucevic would be interesting. I think the Clippers are very interesting for Vucevic. If the Clippers are going for the playoffs, I would try to get Vucevic and see if he could re-sign with you guys. You could give up Jerome Robinson and a future first for Vuce. Let's see if that could work. And then I think it would take a lot to get Aaron Gordon, but I don't think Orlando wants to trade him. I think they want to build around him and Mo Bamba and Jonathan Isaacs. 76ers, get a bench big. Noah Vonleh makes a lot of sense. I already made a case for Dedmon, although I think he's a little overqualified. But I think he'd fit there anyway, and I think he'd fit with Boston too. But I just think he's overqualified for somebody like the Bucks. Because Embiid is somebody that misses games, and so is Al Horford. Not to suggest that those guys aren't going to be healthy for the playoffs, but I could see an argument for Boston, Philadelphia going after Dedmon so he could both start and then once the playoffs come around, come off the bench and start for like when they rest Embiid or Horford. So that's why Dedmon makes sense for Philly. Obviously, Vonleh would be a nice get for them. So if I'm them, a bench big is my objective. The Phoenix Suns, see if you can get a young point guard. Just sniff around, see if Terry Rozier is available from Boston. Frankie Ntilikina from the Knicks. Dennis Smith would have been a candidate, but he was already traded to the Knicks in that Porzingis trade. So just sniff around. Maybe, I don't know if Brooklyn would deal D'Angelo Russell in a contract year and a playoff push, but that would be very interesting if they did that, but I don't think they would. Blazers, get a bench big. A reuniting with Noah Vonleh makes some sense. Maybe they're a dark horse candidate for Dedmon to come off the bench for them. The Sacramento Kings. See if you can get a good player that's overpaid. The best candidate for this is Harrison Barnes. I think Dallas, after acquiring a lot of salary to obtain Kristaps Porzingis, I think they kind of want to dump salary. Well, Harrison Barnes. So that would be a nice player for Sacramento because they do have a need at forward, especially like the small ball forward. And that's why I think Barnes makes a ton of sense for Sacramento. Spurs, get a bench wing. I think that the Spurs are probably going to make the playoffs, barring an injury or whatnot. Greg Popovich, I think, has done the best coaching job of his career, perhaps. So if I'm San Antonio, I get a bench wing. Wesley Matthews makes a ton of sense for San Antonio. The Toronto Raptors, check out the buyout market. I don't think they're going to trade assets for somebody, so instead I check out the buyout market to see what's there. Utah Jazz, try for a backup big. Derek Favors and Rudy Gobert are two very good bigs who they start. So Noah Vonleh, I just keep mentioning his name. I just think he'd be the perfect fit on a lot of contenders. He's having a career year this year on the Knicks. I think the Knicks would like to get a second-round pick for him, and a good one. So Vonleh's somebody that would work. Another case against Dedmon is that, to me, he's more of a overqualified bench guy that could start. And I've already made the case for Boston and Philly for him, but I just don't see Utah as a fit for Dedmon. Just check out the backup big market. And the Washington Wizards, keep Bradley Beal, try to deal Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza's in a contract year, and I don't think the Wizards are going to make the playoffs. I'd keep Bradley Beal because I'd look at offers in the summer for him. It just came out today that John Wall is going to be out a year with the ruptured Achilles. So if I'm the Wizards, I try to do a little bit of a rebuild, see what you can get for Beal, but I wait for the summer and see where the Knicks pick falls. And that's another nice consolation prize for New York if they don't get Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. And on the flip side, a nice consolation prize for the Lakers in case they don't get a big name, or the Clippers. So if I'm the Wizards, I keep Bradley Beal right now, but try to trade Trevor Ariza, see what Houston can give you, see what the Lakers can give you, or somebody like Oklahoma City. He can come off the bench for them, but I think Ariza could be better off as a starter. That's why I think Houston makes a ton of sense, and he can just get a starting job back with Houston. And Houston can be darn close to the team that they were last year if they were to get back Trevor Ariza in any deal. Now my best bet, brought to you by FanDuel. I whiffed yesterday on my pick because I took a couple soccer games that did not go in my favor. There's some college games and some NBA games on the board that I really like, and hockey too. I'm going to throw some hockey in there and try to get a good payout after a bit of a whiff yesterday. In the NBA, I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics in Cleveland. The trade at the Knicks is intriguing, but this could be a trap game for the Pistons after beating the the Nuggets last night at home as a dog. Oklahoma City Thunder's a great pick. I love Portland tonight. I'm going to take Michigan State, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky against South Carolina. And in the NHL, let's go with, you know what, take that back. I don't like any of the hockey odds because there aren't any real good ones. Let's go with some soccer. Brentford over Barnet. We'll go with Wolves over Shrewsbury. Plus 261 odds. I'm going to wager $1 to win $2.61 with a payout of $3.61. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from college basketball, NBA, NHL. Look ahead to the slate of games tomorrow. NBA trade deadline predictions. I'll also do another activity. It remains to be seen what not. And obviously my best bet. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.